What is up, everybody? Lucas Da Silva here, Jason Fulmer here, Essie and Scrappy, episode 15, 16. We've been doing it a little while.
I think it's over 20 now.
Oh, it might be. Oh, geez. But yeah, so lots of stuff to talk about today. Jason, why don't you kick us off and tell us what we got on the docket first today?
Yeah, so, we're going to bury the lead because I think, most people want to discuss your rankings that were dropped. But
we'll get there when we get there.
We're going to get there in a minute. So first, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Florida chapter had their induction ceremony this past weekend. Dan Ward was down there. He took some interviews. He got
in PE class in this big old 180-pound senior Letterman jacket on, like Emilio Estevez in Breakfast Club, and he's, I'm this 115-pound kid, and he comes walking up to me, and he's like, "Hey, you're coming to practice today." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sir. Yeah, of course I am. I'm not gonna say no to him." And then the next day I went to practice, and it smelled a little weird, and it was kind of awkward, and I'm getting squeezed, and I'm like, "Yeah, I played sports, but this is definitely different." And but I just kind of liked it. It was for the first time ever. It was being a smaller kid. It gave me a chance. I was good at sports, but I was always too small for everything else, or too short. Or
I got a ton of honors in this sport, but this right here, it really hits home. National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Florida chapter, my home state. It again. If I don't shed some tears this weekend, right? I mean, writing speeches, and thinking about this, and having my family here.
And I've had the opportunity to work with at-risk kids, and at one time I was an at-risk kid, and wrestling has given me the opportunity to kind of do my part into making the world a better place.
I know the day I got my letter was very emotional. My daughter Jessica had my grandchildren bring it to me.
Wow.
She called me. I had a doctor's appointment that day. I had a procedure done, and she called me, goes, "How you feeling?" And I said, "I'm doing good." And she goes, "You care if the kids want to stop by and see you?" And they come walking in with a bag, and in the bag it had a Hall of Fame t-shirt, hat, and my letter. So tearing up now. You can imagine what that day was like. It was full flow, and it was pretty cool. And I just can't believe it's happening, but I'm looking for it.
It's an unbelievable life coaching is. It's so rewarding that these kids are doing everything, coaching and doing all kinds of things. I don't believe some of the things they say about me, but it's like, I guess I have.
I think wrestling defines me. It's been the factor that has directed my life the way it is. From the friendships that I've made, most of my friends are wrestlers or alumni that wrestled for me. At every level in my life, I think wrestling has had an impact. Even for me, in my moments of weakness, wrestling has always given me strength.
I was about 12 years old. In elementary school, I wanted to play basketball because I had aspirations for the NBA. Didn't work out. I was cut from that team and was in tears in the hallway at the school. And the coach, an elementary ed teacher, came up to me and said, "Don, you might be interested in wrestling. Why don't you give that a try?" And I said, "Okay, I will." And I did. And 65 years later, I'm still involved.
So let's move on from that, and let's move to my conversation. This week, I got an opportunity to interview Billy Maldonado, Coach Maldonado at Lovett. And although we talked a little bit about Lovett, not very much, the focus of our conversation was on the Georgia Wrestling Coaches Association conference that happens in mid-September. I think it's the same weekend as Elite Eight. It happens at Lassiter High School. And, it's fun. We get into a conversation where we talk a little bit about some of the changes that are occurring within Georgia, as well as how he recruited Seth Gross and John Reeder to come down and do that. So here's my conversation with Coach Maldonado. All right, guys, I am here with Lovett coach Billy Maldonado. Coach, first, how are things? It's got to be like kind of a little hectic getting back to school.
Yes, it is. It is. It's a time to you meet your new students. I have a new advisory You got those freshmen that are coming in that are still kind of eighth graders that you got to mold into, young men and women. So it's definitely, it's exciting. I love my job. I love what I do. Not just wrestling coach, but as an advisor, as a coach, as a strength coach, all encompassing. I really do enjoy being here at school. I tell
Yeah.
people I work harder in the summer, rallying around my kids around everywhere, doing yard work and housework. Come to school, it's more of a vacation for me. So I'm blessed in that sense.
Very cool. Very awesome. So we are we're going to talk about a couple different things, but for those of the people that don't know, the primary reason that I asked you on was because of the Georgia Wrestling Coaches Association conference coming up in about a month, a little less than a month away. And before we get to that, the GWCA, what is it? What for somebody who is uninitiated into what the Wrestling Coaches Association is, what is it?
So the GWCA is an organization that if you are thinking of nationally, it'd be the National Wrestling Coaches Association. So we're the state association. I work pretty closely with the advisory committee, with Don Core, Bud Hannibal, Mr. Schaefer, with all those guys that we want to make the experience for our wrestlers the best possible experience. I am somebody who I love my team, love it is where I work. They pay the bills, but ultimately I would rather do something what's best for the entire state for wrestling. And that's what you're going to get at the Coaches Association. You're going to get a bunch of guys and girls that are just motivated and excited to bring the sport of wrestling to a higher level here in Georgia. And that's what we do. We get together once a year, and then we put some subcommittees together to kind of help, promote the sport. And this year we're super excited, bringing in some great clinicians, some great opportunities to learn. So that's what we are. And I hope every coach decides to join. We will accept middle school coaches also. If you're somebody who just wants to help, I had a kid, a young man, a guy who is retiring and says, Coach, I still want to be involved. So we're going to keep him involved and help us with mentoring our coaches. But it's a great organization to join. It's $40 for the clinic, and it's $40 to be a member. So regardless if you can't come to the clinic, be a member, and then we share with you the videos of all of our technique sessions and sessions with our different coaches that are going to speak that day.
Well, and I'm glad you finished with that, because you've got two pretty good ones that are slated to be there in September. It's September 16th, right?
Correct.
That's the date.
Saturday.
Okay.
Yep.
And with Coach Reeder and Coach Gross, both out of the University of Wisconsin. For me on the outside looking in, I always wonder, do you have a personal connection to them? How do you get convince them to come to Georgia and be part of this?
Well, the head coach at Wisconsin was my assistant coach at Iowa State, Chris Bono. I reached out to him, and when I reach out to coaches, I always reach out and say, we would love to have you or your coaching staff. It's a tough time. A lot of coaches have recruits coming in. A lot of coaches have activities with the world team members that they have on their team. So I like to just open it up to your entire coaching staff. Last year we had Purdue assistant coach Leroy Vega, who had a couple guys crying in the stands, talking about stories of J-Rob and, a bunch of other things that he'd experienced. So Chris got a hold of John. John is an Iowa State alum, also a national champion. And he said, let's do it, man. And they're actually coming down for the Elite Eight duels.
Oh, okay.
So that Saturday is the Elite Eight duels, which I'm sure you guys are going to cover and be there.
Yeah.
So they said, hey, let's put a schedule together. So I gave them a slot, and they're fired up. John is extremely, those guys that have met him, he's pumped. He's excited. Seth Gross is one of those wrestlers that are just unique, extremely talented, a man of God, just a great young man. So we're excited to have them in the room or at the gym.
Yeah. So is it for the uninitiated, somebody who hasn't come yet, is it more stories like Vega talking? I mean, because they have a slot of time, or is it technique? Are they going to show a few things? How does that kind of work?
So it's usually we like to talk about technique. So he'll give some drills. So we always say, give us the best drills for a high school coach, what you want coaches to be doing. And then we talk about philosophy. We ask them, hey, what's your philosophy on, your mentality of your wrestlers? And one thing we like to talk about is how can we make kids continue to wrestle? So it's recruiting, but what we mean by recruiting is the hallways. How do you get that kid onto the mat and then bring them onto the family of the wrestling team? So your philosophy. And then if there's time, we ask for stories. Like, give us your most exciting moment as a wrestler. We ask them to just share something that they've experienced and make a connection with that. But a lot of these clinics you go to, sometimes you just get so much information and you're like overloaded. We're like, you know what? Give us techniques and drills that we can utilize.
Yeah, right. Boil it down to 5 or something that, especially as a new coach, that you maybe look at it and you go, I'm not 100% sure. You're hearing this person tell you, you need to be doing this or whatever. I'm sure that would be invaluable, especially as a new coach, to kind of get that information. So,
yeah, 100%.
One of the things that's really interesting to me is right after that is the GHSA segment. And, things seem to be changing a lot within the Georgia landscape and the GHSA pretty quickly. We're gonna see state duels kind of make a shift away from over 3 consecutive weekends to a 16 team bracket. We're still at satellite locations, which for a media person, that's really hard. Are those some of the things that you guys are going to talk about as well?
We are, and there's so many just so much information that you need to have, and coaches are like, let's just do this, and then you're like, okay, did you realize this and that? So when we took 3 weekends for state duels, we took a lot of tournaments a lot of fundraisers for teams, running big tournaments. So that's 3 weekends where you can't make money as a program, and as a lot of people know, is you're kind of sustained by your own whatever you can raise. So I think that's an opportunity for teams to now have those big JV girls varsity tournaments and make some money for their program. On top of that, it actually brings 8 more teams to the prestigious GHSA state duels, and kind of opens up the door for those teams. Get 2 per region, 2 per area will qualify for the state duels and represent their school and their region. So there's a lot to look at. Bringing in 16 teams times 7 or 8 divisions with girls, that's a lot of teams in one venue. So that's where we had a tough time of like, can we do that? Is it feasible?
Yeah.
I loved it when it was at Macon as duels because everybody was there. But I think this is going to be a good break for us, a good trial.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm looking at it from my perspective. I didn't get to see your duel with Central Carroll because Beaufort and Camden's duel was happening at the same time. And, it's all over the state. And I'm like, man, being able to look around an arena and be able to see those specific duels. It's just a fan's perspective of me going, I like to see everyone. Yeah, the other thing that's changing is the state tournament itself.
There's talks of and I don't think the official schedule's out just yet, but of doing all the finals on the same day on Saturday. So instead of having the 4 days of 2 divisions, their finals, our finals last year was at 11:30 at night on Friday.
Yeah.
And then I had to stay back with our female Elle Kaufman, who won state the next day individually. And she didn't have a lot of teammates there to root her on because I'm not keeping teenagers in a hotel without having a competition the next day. It's a lot of liability. So I was like, guys, we won state, go home and celebrate. I'm concentrating on our females. So now we get to all celebrate and be together, and we get to watch every division win a state title, and that should be special.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. As a coach a long time ago, I'm certainly not having all of them sitting there after they finish wrestling. That's not going to happen. So I want to make sure that I I hit the coaches association, the coaches conference
Yeah.
specifically. So if a coach is watching it and doesn't know anything about it, I know I put a flyer up on SC Wrestle. We'll post on the social media and everything else. Your contact information is there. Your email is there. But what's the best way for somebody to kind of get more information or sign up?
Email billy.maldonado@loveit.org.
Okay.
I have the email ready. I'll just forward you the email. It's a Google form. You just sign up, you pay. You can pay on PayPal. You can pay when you get there. If you're having trouble with a payment, you just send me an email and say, hey, coach, I'm going to get you to check later. We want everybody to have the opportunity. If finances is not there and you got to wait till the end of the year to pay your dues, that's perfectly fine too. But it's extremely easy just contacting me and I'll send you the link to sign up. Again, if you can't make it, just sign up anyway, and we'll send you the links for every for the session. We have a really cool session that we do at 8:30. So registration starts at 7:30 to 8:30 for breakfast. 8:30, we have a session that's run by Jim Gassman, who's now the head coach at Jackson County High School recently. He runs a first year, second year coaches seminar. So if you've never wrestled before or never coached before, come see Coach Gassman, and he gives you the ins and outs of the OPC, how to do weight thing, how to do scheduling, how to contact officials, all the nuances of being a coach.
All the things that are super important to actually making it happen.
Yeah, you may not want to go to the clinic to see, you'll miss about a half hour or maybe an hour of John Reeder, but you'll get what you need to get from Coach Gassman. He gives flyers, he gives presentation. If you are a first, second year coach, please attend that seminar. If that's the only one you can attend, just attend that one. And then we go into our clinic schedule. But that's a really good we started that a few years ago and coaches loved it.
Well, and I would think that if you are, even if you wrestled,
yeah,
you don't necessarily know the things that are behind the scenes, the weight cert and all the different things that are required for you. The GHSA, if you don't make that happen, your kids won't compete. So you have to get those things correct on the back end.
We're going to have a session too with a female coach, a coach that's going to come up and talk about, okay, maybe you'll have one or two girls on a team, or there's girls coming through the pipeline. Here are some things that, or if you want to recruit girls to come out. So we're going to have a talk about, kind of what that looks like also. Because they're coming, and we're excited about the girls continue to come and being part of our program. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about also.
Awesome. I'm going to end with this question, and that is, what is one thing from a coach's perspective that we could do as a sport to better promote the sport to everyone?
I think we do it within our individual communities at your school. I put flyers around the school. I put QR codes around the school of highlight videos. Our sports information director does a media day. I think it's more or less we need to do it within our own communities. We can't complain about, football gets everything. Football has Friday night lights. Well, why don't you create a Friday night lights for your wrestling program?
Right.
And that's easy to say because I have people in place and I have a lot of support here. But I think the best way of doing it is within your own school community. And if you're at a school, even like a Central Carrollton, they have a community now there. Bremen, they have a community of wrestlers. Jefferson, and you see those communities, you're jealous. You're like, love it. Our fans at the state tournament are huge. They're excited.
They are. Yes,
they are very loud, and they're they're visible. So that's just, I think it's more as coaches, we need to build within our community. And then it'll blossom up to, wow, wrestling they do travel well, and they do a good job of promoting their sport. And then as a coach, be a part of the Georgia Wrestling Coaches Association. Don Core has always told me, Billy, you get the members, you get the members up, we're going to listen to you. But if you got 40 coaches chirping away and 40 coaches in another community chirping away, and then the northern coaches are chirping, the southern coaches are chirping, you got to come into one community, and then there's give and take. There's things that I wish we would do, but maybe it's not the best for Georgia wrestling. Maybe it's just best for Lovett. So we got to say what's best for our wrestling community, and that's what we want to do.
Awesome, Coach. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, and again, for everyone who maybe if you caught this partway through or something, September 16th, is that right? It's September 16th. Lasser High School, Georgia Wrestling Coaches Association conference. John Reeder, Seth Gross will be in town, and a ton of information. Coach, I want to appreciate. I want to say thank you and best of luck this season to Lovett and to all the wrestling coaches.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Coach. Bye.
Thanks.
All right, Lucas. So lots of interesting things with Coach Maldonado. Probably, for Georgia people, the most interesting. I mean, it's nice to have Seth Gross and John Reeder come in, and he talked about Coach Gassman talking with the new coaches and all the things that new coaches have to learn and everything else. But really, for everybody who probably is watching any of this from a Georgia perspective, the two things that the GHSA is doing are the most interesting. So let's take it.
And it typically seems to be that way. And for the first time in a long time, fair play to you, GHSA. I was a wrestler in the old duels format, top 2 from each of the 8 regions. And while I understand, yes, you could have regions that are wildly stronger than others. You look at Region 1 in 7A, for instance. We talk about all the time that they are 4 of the best teams arguably in the class. I don't care. I like the old format, the one I wrestled under, because it built the sense of rivalries within the region so much more. Because when you went to the new format, basically due to COVID, a lot of it came down to, it doesn't matter if we take 3rd in our region duels. We're going to get a good drop anyways. We'll go win it and we'll go to state anyways. When we had to wrestle Mountain View, North Gwinnett, Peachtree Ridge, we may have been better than them, but we knew they were going to fight and claw tooth and nail because they knew they had to get to that final to make it to state. And I feel like it does a good thing for rivalries within the region. So for me, going back to that format, GHSA, you get a thumbs up from Lucas Da Silva. Ain't that something, Jason?
So I will say the one thing, so I don't mind that. I'm okay with that. The only thing that I want to see with the duels is for everybody to come back together so I can watch the best duels finals together.
Yeah.
That's my only thing.
I
I'm good with the other part. What about the proposed or the idea of now shifting the state tournament back to 3 days and all the finals happening at the same time?
They just want more money.
Well, do you get more money? I guess you get the same number of people coming back 3 days instead of 2 days. I will say, Coach Maldonado, hang on. Coach Maldonado brought up a good point, and that was that for Lovett, right? Because he had girls and because he had Ellie Kaufman and his boys finished, and then she was still finishing, and he wasn't about to have all of them stay around an extra day, and try to watch them and everything else.
So,
and, he wanted to focus on her. So I get that.
I mean, I get that too. I also don't think the girls' state should be in with the guys' state. I think it should be its own stand. Because I feel like when you try to shoehorn it in with the guys, you force everything to be focused around trying to build a system that's fair for everybody. Where I think the most fair system is have it as 2 separate events. I just don't think that because I think what's most, if we're going to talk about fair for a minute, there are teams that do have coaches for men's and women's. You look at Lumpkin, for instance. They have a girls coach. They have a men's coach. Now, should it be catered to them? Where no, but it should be where the ones that have the money and have the ability to, because I'm also not that guy that's going to say, if you have money and
6.5 hours later, a few inches later, day 2, day 3, day.
That leads us to, and I didn't expect such a vociferous response from you as it related to that, but that's okay. Let's move to the thing that has elicited a bit of a response.
The top story. You need the breaking news transition here.
I do.
Let's do
So your top 10 in your classes for the state of Georgia. And by the way, we plan on doing this for Mississippi and for Alabama and Florida.
Yep.
Hopefully a couple of the other states as well. Depends on how comfortable we feel with being able to pull this together.
I have Mississippi's done. I am working at this very moment on my Excel spreadsheet. I'm working on building one for South Carolina. And I'm going to tell the Floridians and North Carolinians this. Y'all are a complete blind spot for me. I told y'all last year. I am getting better with Florida. I know more teams now than I did last year. I know a lot more kids than I did, but I'm still working on it. Jason is being so gracious and educating me, as guys like Cabra and Daniel Ward are, because whenever I go to Florida tournaments, I ask them 1,000 questions each, but they all answer it. North Carolina, I'm doing my best. Shout out Rhett Hoy and the Carolina Takedown Talk Crew. They've been helping me there. We will be doing that.
And to be fair, I'm going to try to do some of Florida and Alabama, so to try to help.
Yeah. Some of them, like I'm going to be honest, North Carolina, you might be waiting till the preseason. You might not get a preseason. I'm going to be honest, because I may not be ready and have the knowledge in time. I just want to make that clear.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Exactly, because how we know by next week we'll be ready.
Right, but in Georgia, you did post the preseason. And before we get to this, and before we talk a little bit about it, I want you just to give me your overview, because you do a power index combining the two, and just to give people an idea who haven't read it, who haven't looked at it, how do you do it?
So this is how it works. I built a Excel spreadsheet, mathematical formula system with some help from a couple of my aunts and my cousins who are a bit more mathematically inclined than me. Because the one thing I always hated about rankings was a lot of times it's just, I think this team's 1, this team's 2, and sometimes there's no objectivity and there's no real formula to the thought process. I wanted there to be some logical reasoning by my rankings. Now, am I going to say that every time my matrix spits something out to me, I follow it lock and step? No, I will sometimes manually edit things. But for the most part, the way it works is this. I put each team up against an average opponent, average being a score of 2.5 each weight in a dual meet format. And based on the way that team finishes in a dual meet, it gives me a power score out of 5 for them in duels. I put them up against a same type of competition in an individual format. How they finish gives me a score of 5. Put those 2 points together. That is your power score out of 10. Now, last year it was a bit more state-oriented, where the best team in the state could get a 9.9. That's slightly different this year. I added a bit more understanding of national level competitions, because I wanted a bit more realistic understanding, especially as we decided to rank other states in the region. So this is if we're going to call these my tiers almost. If a team scores a 10 to a 9.8, that's a national contender. That's a team that could go to Super 32 to Escape the Rock, Powerade, Beast, Iron Man, and they could be in the mix. I'm not saying they're going to win it. I'm not saying they're going to get last. They're in the mix. If you score a 9.7 to an 8.8, you're a regional contender. You go to any tournament in the Southeast, and you're vying for a top 5 spot. 8.7 to an 8.1, you're an in-state threat. Any tournament or event you go to within the state that's mainly state competition, you're in a good spot to contend. 8 to a 6.7 is a solid Georgia team. 6.6 to 5.5 is a decent Georgia team. 5.4 to 4.2, that's a mid-level Georgia team. 4.1 to 3.5, that is what I would consider an average high school team. Like an average Georgia team, in the sense of, like, they have kids, they can wrestle, they have, 11 plus guys most of the time. It's going to be rare to see a team that can't compete in a dual format because they don't have enough kids. It's going to be rare to see them go above that. And after 3.5, not say I don't rank them, but those are teams that they don't make a lot of noise. They might have a single individual that can make noise on the individual chart, but they won't be there on the team side.
All right. Thank you. That was actually really helpful. So what we're going to do is I'm going to count them down, and then I want you to give me kind of what you were thinking, how it kind of played out. Okay. All right. So let's start with 7A. And number 10 in 7A is Lowndes, 9 is Archer, 8 is North Gwinnett, 7 Carrollton, 6 Brookwood, 5 North Paulding, 4 West Forsyth, 3 Mill Creek, number 2 Beaufort, and number 1 Camden County. So why Camden County over Beaufort?
Currently, as it stands, they return the most, and they just seem to breed these kids to wrestle. And here's what's funny: anytime I put Camden County is the only team in the state that no matter who I put them up against in a dual format, they are the favorites in that duel. It doesn't matter who in the state I put them up against in my rankings matrix, they come out as the favorite. That is including teams like Jefferson, Cass, that includes everybody. Beaufort, they are favorites. So to me, that says they're the best dual team in the state. I would tend to agree, especially when you think about the fact that they were so good last year, and a lot of them were freshmen. Ryder Wilder was a freshman. Like that's a scary thought process. Like that, it gets real scary when you start thinking about how good they really were and how young they were. Beaufort and Mill Creek, to me, are a lot closer than a lot of people might give them credit for. I think Beaufort better be on their game. Not to say that Mill Creek in an individual format is scary. The Mills, Bambinelli, Lou Stifler, they are scary in an individual format. I think duels, Beaufort could handle them, right? I think that Beaufort has enough in duels, especially when you add young McCormick and the crew coming in. But in an individual format, Mill Creek is a lot to handle. As a matter of fact, I actually think Mill Creek, best case scenario, Mill Creek could potentially push Camden in an individual format. Could push them. Not to say they'll beat them, but could make a run at them.
All right. So Beaufort, one of the challenges last year was up top, 215, 285, and that sort of thing. Rumor has it, and again, this is just a rumor. This is all the different things you kind of hear from different people.
That's a great point that you brought up. When you get done with this, I want to make a point about some of these.
Okay. Trey Butler, I hear, is at Beaufort. Trey's wrestled for Team Georgia and Fargo and that sort of thing. I think he'll take the 285-pound spot. If he does, I would assume at this point in time that's not factored into your ranking check or your matrix.
No, it is. Everybody is where they were as of last school year. I have not made the changes, such as Lovett to Wood, or not Lovett, Christian Bell to Woodward, Traps to free agency, Sammy Brown to not wrestling, even though I've had it on good accord, those two will not be competing. I am waiting to see what actually happens, because I need you guys to understand, I heard Lee Camp was at school at Woodland, sorry. I heard he was in class at Woodland. I don't know. I don't think he is, but I've got told it by 2 or 3 separate people. If I decided to make moves based on every rumor I got, I would be only listening to rumors.
Well, and I will say this. The thing that stands out to me is, if we went with rumors, right, Bambinelli would have been in the Beaufort lineup last year, right?
Yeah.
If we went with rumors,
and Seth Larson would be at Jefferson right now.
Right. So we are all sorts of things that don't end up being. So
yeah.
So just now, I will say we have kind of confirmed, because I just watched the football, Christian Bell playing for Woodward in football. So we do know that.
I saw that too. When I did my rankings as of August 17th is when I actually hit my matrix, and I said produce my scores. I hadn't seen any confirmation yet. So just know, when the preseason rankings come out, that one, since it is confirmed, that one will be brought into the ranking process. Like, that one will change what happens. And by the way, to the Central Carroll people, you're right second. That's not sleeping.
So
that's me sleeping on you.
So question in 4A real quick. If Bell is at Lovett or is at Woodward, and we 99% sure that he is now.
Yeah.
And I know you can't just do your matrix right in front of us, but do you think Central jumped him?
You don't think I can?
Oh, okay. Maybe you can't. Oh, yeah.
True. hell is his name? Here he is. All right. So if we throw him on Woodward Academy, in fact, I'll do both for you, ladies and gentlemen. Not only am I going to say what would happen in 4A, I'll talk about Woodward. In 4A, it would flip Central Carroll over Lovett. It would make that flip. Carroll would stay at an 8.3, Lovett would drop to a 7.9, and Woodward Academy would rise to an 8.8.
Okay.
That's what would happen.
Okay.
Now, again, that is not what this is. The preseason is as we have on the website.
All right. So let's go to 6A. Number 10, Etowah.
Can I make one last point about 7A?
Sure.
7A. I am super duper high on Carrollton, and I think that they are a super big dark horse for this year. Not to say win a state title, but top 4, top 6, I feel like Carrollton is a dark horse, and if they get everything shored up down below, behind guys like Jacob Levy and the crew, don't be surprised if you see Carrollton in the top 5.
Okay. So we're gonna do one last thing on 7A, I will say
let's do that before we go to each class.
Okay. One team that's outside
Before
of the top 10
class,
that I think that should be in the top 10 is Walton. So that was just my thing.
Walton came in at number 12 for me.
You know what's
I need to see. I need to see more than just Necula and Rio. I need to see a little bit more.
Agreed. One of the things that's really going to be interesting is if Gorman is at 38 and Paradise is at 50, man, does 44 with Gavin Pope and a bunch of other people become like a really good weight class because of so many kids not going 38 or 50?
It becomes real interesting. It becomes real interesting. 44 immediately becomes one of the most fun weights in the state in 7A.
I agree. All right, 6A.
And it becomes a weight. It becomes a weight that could change the course of the title race.
6A, number 10, Etowah. Number 9, Lee County. 8, Brunswick. 7, Jackson County. 6, Glenn Academy. 5, Marist. 4, North Forsyth. 3, Lasser. 2, South Effingham. And number 1, still number 1 without Christian Bell, but certainly solid number 1 with Christian Bell, Woodward Academy. So, talk to me a little bit about 6A real quick.
So most fun thing about 6A for me is if you look at the ranks 4 through 8, 0.6 separates them. And I want to make this clear to somebody. A 1-point difference is not a major difference. A 1-point difference is like a good tournament result with a couple kids that weren't ranked as highly, getting a couple big wins. You'll jump a point. We saw it last year that a couple teams jumped 1.4 points in the matter of 2-3 weekends. So I need to make that clear because we'll get to it when we get there. There's one class where 1 point separates number 1 and number 7. So we'll get there when we get there. But 0.6 separating Brunswick, Jacks, Glenn, Marist, and North Forsyth, that basically means nothing. Like that really is just my matrix ranks a couple of kids out like a little higher up and it gives them the nod. And I know the Red Terror faithful are banging down my doors currently, with pitchforks and flames.
And I'm leading the way.
I need to see him do it. I need to see him do it. I've heard a lot of good things. We saw him have a good year last year. I need to see him do it. What'd they finish last year at duels?
I don't remember. I don't know. I don't remember.
What'd they finish at traditional?
At traditional, I can look that up real quick.
I need to see some more out of them, and I need to see it done. Not to
10.
be this kind of way, but
they took 10.
I need to see them do it in the postseason. They've had good regular season results last year. I need to see them do it in the postseason when it matters. And they can't be beating. There are certain teams that they beat back last year by like 7 points. That can't be 7-point wins. They need to be beating them by 20, by 25. Like there are certain teams that they're 9. I'll tell you this, Glenn Academy right now in a dual meet setting is a 14.5-point favorite over Lee County. I need to see them actually like beat them by that much. If it's a 1-point duel, then to me in my matrix, that's a problem. Like that's all. I need to see them actually do it when it matters.
All right. So
one last thing about 6A for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I completely agree with you that Marist is a dark horse. I completely agree. I like what Marist has. I like their staff. They seemingly year over year are closing the gap. I completely agree. I think they're a super big dark horse.
Well, and the reason Scrappy knows this is that on the plus part of the website, I wrote a take. I wrote a take of his power thing and his power rankings, and I tell him where I agree with him. I tell him where I disagree, and so on and so forth.
I don't like when he posts something and I do the Scrappy take. Same type of thing.
Correct. All right, so move to 5A. Number 10, Chapel Hill. 9, Calhoun. 8, Coffee. 7, Greenbrier, which I hear from Epstein, not very happy with the number 7 spot.
Yeah.
Number 6, Woodland. Number 5, Dalton. 4, Flowery Branch. 3, Ola. 2, Cass. And 1 is Jefferson. And the only thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to let you kind of explain, and that is, if Sammy Brown isn't wrestling for Jefferson and Craps isn't wrestling for Cass, you better keep an eye on Ola.
It creates a very interesting world to live in where we could be sitting here walking into Macon and saying Ola is the favorite. So that's the thing is Ola to me is blue collar. Like we talked about it last preseason, take your lunch pail to work. And they are super deep. You look at guys like Javion Redmond and a lot of these cats that guys may not know them by name, but they're compound products and they work their tail off. Brian Papkin down there, like there's a lot of really, really tough kids at Ola that may not be your Jake Craps level, your Sammy Brown level, but they are right there. And if Ola gets a couple things to go their way, 2 of those being Craps and Brown, if they don't wrestle for their respective high schools, it makes things real, real interesting in 5A. Really, really interesting. Greenbrier, I hear a lot. I don't see a lot. And I love the Greenbrier crew. I really do. I love them. But a couple of their guys last year didn't have the postseason that they should have. Returning points are big in my matrix, which is why you see a team like Coffee and Chapel Hill on an individual playing field. They score a lot of good points because they return a lot. Now, obviously, incoming freshmen make a difference. I know, and they absolutely do. But the thing is, they need to actually produce when they come in, and we'll see that as the preseason comes, Turkey Day rankings, as guys compete, we'll see those kinds of things change. Big dark horse for me. When it comes to just as a whole, I love me some Flowery Branch, but a team like Dalton, super deep, has guys at each spot that can bang. Dalton could make a top 4. You know, if some things don't go the right way for one of those top 3 teams, Dalton might try to push for a top 3 spot individual. I think duels, they'll have some issues matchups wise, especially against Cass. But Dalton, keep your eye on the Catamounts, especially with the staff coming in for year 2.
All right. So in 4A, number 10, West Lawrence. Number 9, Cedartown. 8, North Hall. 7, Southwest DeKalb. Tip of the cap to Southwest DeKalb. Last year, traditional, boy, they showed out, had a great tournament. Number 6, Heritage Catoosa. 5, Troup County. 4, Sonoraville. 3, Chestatee. 2, Central Carroll. And number 1, Lovett. Lovett. We've already talked a lot about Lovett and Central Carroll. They are certainly at the top of this, and looks like Bell is now at Woodward Academy, which you've already mentioned that would put Central above. But there's a lot to happen this fall, and we're going to see a lot from both these teams who are still going to be super good and super tough.
Absolutely. Like, that's the thing. It is 4A. I don't necessarily want to say it's a 2-horse race, but assuming everything goes the way it should, I think we could see a situation where Lovett and Central Carroll both battling for the top 2 spots. But man, that spot for like 3 through 8 is fascinating. Chestatee, Sonoraville, Troup, who you and I disagree on a little bit. You are a super big fan of Troup. I think that they have a great crew. The coaching staff is great. I just need to see. Again, I almost view it kind of like Glen Academy. I always hear things. I need to see it a little bit. Like, I need them to actually produce. And not saying they can't, but you look, they have guys like Bowen, and they return all 3 of their finalists. They could do great things, and they obviously have one of the best incoming freshmen. I believe his name is John Darius Wilson. If not, someone correct me. But I like Troop. I just need to see a little bit more out of him. North Hall, I think, can really make some noise. But then again, they are a traditional power that just has kind of had an off run. So it wouldn't be necessarily a surprise to see them make some noise. You have Harrison Free returning. They just need to push a couple of their guys onto the podium. But yeah, overall, I think 4A is a super fun class to watch this year. Keep your eye on Sonoraville, though. I feel like due to all the stuff people are talking about are Central and love it, and all Troop is too low, I feel like some people might miss out on Phoenix, and do not be surprised.
So I'm glad you brought that up because we actually talked about like 3 things off of the recording before, for a couple of days ago, and one was Troop because I think Troop should be higher, but it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Moving to 3A, this is the classification where, man, I think that there's just so many different things could happen. And we're going to get to that in just a second. Number 10, Morgan County. 9, Lumpkin County. 8, White County. 7, Pickens County. 6, Colahula Creek. I think that's how you say it. Number 5, Columbus. 4, Gilmer. 3, Bremen. 2, Franklin County. And 1, Ringgold. And before Lucas gets into this, everybody should be aware. Like Columbus won duels, but then didn't finish top 4 at traditionals. I mean, that's how kind of what last year was like. And given how close these teams are, that's kind of how this looks too.
So let me explain something to you guys. I didn't include the teams outside looking in. Typically, the way I do this is outside looking in are teams that score 0.6 within the number 10 spot. 7A had 3 teams outside looking in. 6A had 2. 5A had 3. 4A had 4. 2A has 2. 1A has 3. Girls has 2. 3A has 7 teams outside looking in. That's how deep 3A is. It has 7 teams that could very well jump into Morgan County spot at number 10. And then I love Columbus. I love the crew down there. But let's also keep in mind, Wynn and Secoy didn't wrestle at traditionals. When I look at the lineups, I typically take the last lineups from each team because I am not guessing weight classes. I have made this clear. I will not guess weight classes. I'm not going to play that game. It's stupid because
it's hard.
And this is it's hard and it's stupid because everybody says, "Oh, we'll take what they did at Fargo." Guys cut 25 pounds for Fargo. Hulk made a comment to me once about going heavyweight this season. So what am I going to do? Put him at heavyweight because he said that? Or should I put him at 195 because he wrestled at Fargo? No, I'm going to put him at 215 because that's what he wrestled at State. And then when we get to the regular season, we'll see where he ends up. And then I'm going to take it from there. So, and by the way, I made the point earlier about 1 point being not that big of a deal. Columbus to Ringgold is 1 point. Columbus could make that up. They could make that up with guys like Secoy and then banging it out, having a good Elite 8 and a good Super 32. And because obviously, once we see where they place in the lineup, weight class wise, it will change and tailor the way the rankings move. This is very much almost a confit to the regular season. This is by no means the way the regular season is going to look, especially in 3A, where there's so much that could happen. If you tell me right now you have Pickens County finishing top 3 in both, I believe you. I'm like, oh, fair enough. I can see that. That's how crazy 3A is. You look at a team that's not on here, Fort Oglethorpe, I think, could make a run to finish top 9. They're one of the teams outside looking in. There's so many teams in 3A that could make a big difference. And a lot of people will look at Gilmer. They graduated a lot, they almost are like a mini Camden where somehow every year they graduate a lot, yet they continue to have guys that know how to wrestle. It's a testament to how good that program up at Gilmer is. Legitimately, a tip of the cap to them for every year finding guys to fill holes and do well. So for me, 3A, if I get this right, when we get down to the postseason, ask me for the Powerball numbers. That's about it. That's about.
You have a matrix
odds.
for the Powerball too?
If I did, I think I'd be in jail.
Yeah, or or very wealthy, and we could be doing this from wherever. All right,
Yeah.
2A.
We've been doing this sipping Mai Tais.
Number 10, East Jackson. Number 9, Union County. Number 8, Jordan. Number 7, North Murray. Number 6, Fannin County. 5 is Cook. 4, Model. Sorry, Model. I was adopting your thing. Number 3, Vidalia. 2, Toombs County. And number 1 is still Rockmart. So Rockmart graduated a lot, still returns in the number 1 spot. And for me, before I let you go and start talking about 2A, Union County, I think, is a team that is a surprise team down at number 9. That's just my take.
Well, I mean, so for me, they return. I believe they're top 8 in returning points. I could be mistaken at individual duels. They had some trouble, but for me, I like what they have returning. In 2A is a really weird class for me because not to say it's necessarily the weakest, but it's the most unknown. Where a lot of guys graduated on a lot of teams. You look at Rockmart.
Well,
Rockmart did have
both of them.
If you look at Rockmart's if you look at Rockmart's JV, when their JV would wrestle varsity teams or varsity opponents, their JV would actually compete with them, which to me says they do a good job of developing not only their starters but their backups. So that's why they really stayed at the top. Toombs and Vidalia and Model are all in a deadlock right now because they all to me are very similar in a lot of ways. And my matrix basically against each other in a dual format has Toombs as a half a point favorite against Vidalia and a 1 point favorite against Model. But in an individual tournament, it says Vidalia would be first, Model second, Toombs third. So really a cluster for that 2 to 4 spot. I got 2 dark horse. It's darts. I got 2 dark horses in 2A. I love what Coach Walker's doing at Cook. I think they are making the right jumps. And another guy I really like is Thornberry up at North Murray. I really like the program he's putting on, guys like Brandon Locke and them. I feel like North Murray, they're a year or 2 away. I don't think they're ready yet then again, in 2A they might, and it seems to be every year I say someone's a year or 2 away, they seemingly all of a sudden run like gods halfway through the year. So I probably just gave the Mountaineers all the bulletin board material they need. But I will actually go out on a limb and say I think they're a year or 2 away for pushing for a trophy, but they could very well be a real tough team in 2A in the next couple of seasons.
All right.
And shout out Patton at East Jackson. I like East Jackson too, but I feel like they don't have enough yet.
All right. 1A, which always elicits a lot of responses as well. Number 10, Elbert County. Number 9, Scriven County. 8, Dade County. 7, St. Francis. 6, Lamar County. 5, Commerce. 4, Tryon. 3, Oglethorpe County. 2, Pisgah. And number 1, Social Circle. Before we get to the discussion about 1 and 2 and whether it's Social Circle and Pisgah, talk to me a little bit about the teams below them. And is there anybody that can really legitimately push them?
I almost think the more interesting conversation is who's going to get third in 1A. And I hate being that way, but I feel like the Patriots, Bulldogs, Tigers, and even a team like Lamar County and St. Francis, they just have too many holes where there's way too many question marks for me, where I don't know. The thing about Pisgah and Social Circle that makes them really interesting as a 1A unit is they don't have a lot of holes. Social Circle, we know some of their troubles are up top. Pisgah, they're a bit more balanced, but they have holes throughout the lineup. So that's where I feel like Social Circle, and this could get some flack. I feel like Social Circle's guys at the top end are maybe higher up in the sense of I might view them. They have like guys like Braden Mitchell, Cruz, Duran, Castillo, whereas Pisgah, you do have guys like Marley, Nardella. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. But I just feel like Pisgah might be deeper. Social Circle might have if we're just going talent for talent, I might pick Social Circle. And I think the reason why they sit above them is Social Circle is like made to win tournaments. They are a traditional team. But even in a dual scenario, my matrix has them as 2.5-point favorites against Pisgah, but they have them beating Pisgah in a tournament too, so they had to be number one for me. The only other team that really challenges Social Circle or Pisgah is in a dual meet. Tryon stays within 10 points of both of them, but everybody knows that whenever you make odds, it skews closer than it really is. So that if that tells you anything, I feel like it's kind of a 2-horse race for the top 2 spots, and then third is an absolute murderer's row. I really like Oglethorpe, and I like the program that they've got there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them. We talked about kind of there being the top 4 last year, with it being Pisgah, Soul Circle, Tryon, Commerce. I wouldn't be surprised to see Oglethorpe go wire to wire, breaking up that top 4.
I certainly agree in that it really, I mean, so Tryon graduated a lot, there were several teams further down that graduate quite a bit. Who steps in and takes those spots will play a huge role in how high that team kind of climbs and where they end up. Social Circle and Pisgah, to me, have fewer of those types of holes, and that's why they're at the top of the top 2.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the girls. And number 10, Jackson County, 9, Columbus, 8, Chattooga, 7, Jordan, 6, Lumpkin County, 5, Chestatee, 4, Woodward Academy, 3, Gilmer, 2, Greenbrier, and number 1, Carrollton.
Yep. The Trojans, for me, I've worked with a lot of their girls this summer, and I could see a lot of them making some big jumps. You look at girls like the Moore sisters, Dudley, Cadence Williams, Gabby Carnes. They bring in Mudon. I can't remember forgetting this girl's name for the life of me, but there's an incoming freshman in about the middle of the lineup that I'm super high on. I'm losing my mind, and it's gonna piss me off because I should know this girl because she's awesome. Sierra Lopes, she's incoming, and she had a little sister that wrestled for me, but I also got to work with Sierra at some practices. I think she's super tough. The big thing for me is injuries. Injuries hurt a lot of these girls. You look at Greenbrier, you're down Melvin for the foreseeable future. Shizer at Gilmer, she's going to be down for a while. And Lumpkin, I'm very high on. Nora Garbazovas, Gwynnie Wright. I am super duper high on Cadence Grella. The big question for me is, does Greta return? She is, for those who don't know, she got banged up bad at duels, a Liz Frank injury at national duels. And that's a big one. If she does get back into the lineup, I feel as though it changes the fortunes for a team like Lumpkin. But if she doesn't, it's going to be tough for them. So there's a lot of question marks there for me. I got to compete as a coach against a lot of the girls from Jordan, and they are tough, scrappy girls from top to bottom. That's why they come in at number 7 for me. But there's also a couple of teams for girls that I feel like could very well be in that top 10 that just missed it barely. You look at teams like Veterans, Alexander, Northside. There's Alexander for me is the big one, being that they were really one of the first teams in Georgia's scene to have a lot of girls back when I was still wrestling. There's a lot that could happen there. White County as well with the Wylands. There's some stuff that could change. I'm interested to see how we get into the regular season and see who goes where. It's going to be fascinating. And like we talked about, individual girls rankings will be coming this year. I'm already done with those. I don't know when I'm going to post those. Me and Jason are still trying to figure out the individual side of things. But I feel like Georgia's girls race this year is going to be very, very intriguing.
All right. So the one thing I'm going to bring up before we transition off of this to our last topic, and that is Greenbrier and Woodward Academy both are senior heavy squads who have been there, competed, know what it's like. I think because of those things, it plays a big role. Not to say that Carrollton obviously still has them, but they graduated a few. I don't know that Greenbrier and Woodward Academy graduated any of their girls that scored points with them. And I think that's important.
And that is big. I feel like Woodward can make a deep run. I just need to see them. Where last year they scored a lot, but they did have a lot of girls that scored. Like the girls that scored for them were finalists, top 3. I need to see them fill some of those holes with more girls, and I think they'll be a big threat in duels as well. And the reason that I don't have I produced scores for the girls. The reason I didn't put them is because I have never done individual rankings for the girls. It made it a lot more challenging to do a point system. Now that I do that, I can produce a point system. And what that will also allow me to do is when we start doing other states, I could parlay the same types of scoring system for the girls. And that's where we're going to get a really easy way for me to have eventually, maybe next season, a regional power scored top 25 teams, let's say, for men and women. But I need some time on that, ladies and gentlemen. Me and Jason are going to work to do that for you guys and give you guys the content that you want to see. I just need some time there. I will tell you guys this. Beside my school schedule, I'm going to a lot of events this year. You guys will see me everywhere. Mississippi, I'll see you there twice this year. I'll be in Florida probably twice this year with you, Jason. East Side, South Carolina. I don't know who to hit up from you, but I want to work the Southern Slam. I want to be there, but I don't know who to talk to, and I'm not just going to show up. So someone hit me up.
Oh, I can hook you up there. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, well, no, I know the East Side crew, but I'm like, should I just hit up Maholtz, or is there like someone specific I need to talk
we'll take
to?
care of it. We'll take care of it off of this. All right. So,
long story short, we'll be doing a lot of things for you guys this year.
So this weekend, very quickly, no way to do a preview. I'm going to post something on SE Wrestle, the regular SE Wrestle, not Plus, of a quick kind of preview-ish of the Super 32 qualifier. But I wanted to get Scrappy's opinion on this before we wrap up this week. And that is, so I'm going to play it. I'm going to show it. I'm going to share the screen with you. So tell me when you can see it.
Oh, Lordy. This is going to be interesting.
Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Is it sharing?
Yeah.
Can you see it? Is it blurry or is it okay?
No, I see it now. I think it was just probably the phone doing a screen record probably didn't come over that well.
All right. So Daniel Ward wrote, I have heard people say, if you have no plans of your kid competing at Super 32, don't enter your kid in the qualifiers. Do you agree? If they qualify, doesn't that take a spot from another kid? And real opinion is not the common. Well, if you can't beat the kid in your state, why go to 32? And that, as I was playing it, because I recorded it, elicited quite a few comments that went all over the place. So basically,
I could see that.
You should compete whether you're going to go or not. It doesn't matter. Tony DeSario says in Georgia it's hard to win the qualifier than a state championship.
That's true. That people don't understand. You had brackets in the Georgia ones that it was like me, Payne, Camden Monroe, Drew Eller, Charlie Darricott, like those brackets were nuts. If you want to go see a good Georgia bracket, go to those brackets from back in the day. Good God.
So the question I have with that is, should you not compete in it because you would take a spot from somebody else?
So if you don't plan on going to Super 32, you shouldn't do the qualifier. But if you're a kid that's already qualified and you go, that's fair game to me. I feel like the only thing should be you should only go to it if you plan on going to 32. Because here's my thing, right? If you go to Super 32 let's say you already qualified, you're a state champion, right? You go to Super 32 qualifier. I'm a competitor. I want to knock out more people. I don't want more people in the bracket that could be tough. So yeah, you should go and compete and try to take a spot. But if you don't plan on going, then I don't think you should go. No.
All right, so I want to pause it real quick because at about this point in time, we get into a very much back and forth between Mario DiBenedetto and
oh my
Rick
God,
Tribbett.
Of course it's Mario.
And
Mario DiBenedetto runs Swamp Monsters out of California. Jesus.
They get into it as far as whether you should go, it's being a participation trophy, all these things and everything else. All right, so
Jesus.
What? Yeah, it went off the rails. All right,
Mario's always getting into trouble.
My question is this. You because first, it's technically not a qualifier. It's an early entry tournament. It does sell out like in 9 minutes. Like when they actually do the registration, it sells out super quick. By finishing first through fourth at the early entry tournament, or having earned an early entry kind of ticket, fast pass, or whatever you want to call it, you can register early. Okay. So the question is you've got Cooper Haas wrestling for Osceola, who's already qualified for the Super 32.
Yeah.
Should he be allowed to wrestle in the early entry tournament because he could be taking away that opportunity from somebody else?
Is he going to Super 32? Like, will he be in Greensboro?
Yes.
Then yes. That's my only distinction. That's my single distinction. If you don't plan on going, you're a bit of a twerp if you go and take a spot and then don't go. Right? That's
what if you don't know if you're going to go? Like, what if you simply want the competition? Like, I can't afford to go to Super 32, but I want to get the best competition against the kids in my state before the season starts.
I understand that point, being that a kid that went through some of the same issues. Don't go to the tournament. Like that. That tournament should almost be like held over your head that you should have to go to 32, because if you earn that spot, you're earning the position over the guys that you beat. I took a spot if you beat someone in the blood rounds, you took their spot. Like, you took it from them. You beat them. They wanted to go to 32. They can't because they had to run into you. It should almost like put this inherent, like, I took that spot from you. I'm going to go because you couldn't go. So that's where I feel like it's a little, no one's going to be happy, and it's always someone's going to get shafted, and it sucks because not everybody has the financial capability to go all these tournaments. Trust me, I know, like, I've been there, so I get it. But there are a lot of great tournaments around the Southeast and especially in the state of Florida, where some of my girls I know from Weehawken went to some tournament this weekend that I never heard of. But when I looked at some of the competition, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good event. So for me, you can find good competition. This singular case, I am for, no. If you go in place, you should go Super 32. Like, you shouldn't go if you're not planning on it.
All right. So that was the question. That's the thing I want. So again, some context. This went kind of viral over on the Florida page and that sort of thing. The reason it did is because for a long time, there was kind of an agreement among coaches that if you had already qualified, you wouldn't go to the qualifier or you wouldn't go to the early entry tournament. That changed several years ago. Now it's turned into the type of tournament that Georgia, I think, has always been, which you guys never had that kind of agreement where if you've already qualified. So that's my other question is, if you're going with that, so if you've already qualified, you're still okay with them going and taking a spot because they've already qualified.
It's like from a competitive standpoint, that Super 32 is a hell of a tournament. Why shouldn't I go if I plan on going? Like, if I am going, why shouldn't I try to take a spot from someone that could be a threat to me in Greensboro? That makes sense to me. That I could logically understand.
Okay.
For me, it's about, can I justify it? I can justify going to try to take a spot from somebody. I can't justify going and taking a spot from someone and then not going.
All right.
It'd be almost like playing a lottery ticket, winning the lottery, and then not accepting the money. No, that's the way I view it. That's how I kind of like it. Or it'd be like getting a Who's Number One golden ticket and then forfeiting 24 hours before. Like, come on, man.
And somebody else doesn't get to go.
Exactly. Yeah, it just ends up as a forfeit. Like, come on, son. Like, we need to be better than that.
All right. So on that note, that is this week's show. I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation about Georgia, Mississippi. We're going to post some of those. We've got some of the other states coming up. Both Lucas and I will be on at Ola this weekend unless something happens. So make sure you run up on Lucas and tell him exactly what he got wrong. That would make me happy.
I'm going to get yelled at by somebody. I know it. Like, someone's going to yell at me.
Of course you are.
Bet you $5 is Richard Swan. Bet you $5 is Mr. Swan. I'll bet you. I'll give get 2-1 odds on it too.
I'm not taking that bet. I'm not taking that bet. Now, the only thing I would take a bet on is whether he will be the first one to yell at you.
He doesn't like getting to tournaments early. So if I get in the building early, it might be someone else first. That's a good bet right there, son. Line on what round does he yell at me? Is it before the round of 16 or after?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you come and say hey, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week. A few highlights hopefully from this coming weekend, and we'll drop a few more rankings and stuff. Take care.
Yes, sir. Peace.